So just in case you're curious, I'm going to be going over some of the criteria that I use when I evaluate a pitch. And this is going to be attached to the kind of pitch deck reviews and react videos that I'm going to be doing. So I just really wanted to go through in a separate video some of the thoughts that go through in my head. So I'm just going to pull up a quick deck that I created, right? And kind of discuss what my rationale and what my thought process is when I evaluate these pitches. But just wanted to start off by saying why you should really listen to me, other than my amazing charisma and good looks. My name's G, short for George. I'm an angel investor and three-time founder in the Boston area. I am not currently in Boston, fled during the pandemic, but hopefully will make my triumphant return at some point. I've had one prior exit and then one kind of acqui-hire to kind of save things. Trying to always be better. I'm only as good as my last startup. And so, working on something new now that I'll, if you watch my YouTube channel, you've seen the progress so far. But just in terms of like looking at these pitch videos, I learned everything about startups, not just by building startups, but had kind of a mini MBA when I first started working at Techstars Boston. At the time, job title was a hack star. Nowadays, they're more known as associates, and my particular role was probably more of an engineering associate. I was really immature back in the day. Was probably not the best employee. But I learned so much, and I think because of it, I've become the person that I am today. So, due to some of the exits that I've had, I've been able to fortunately become an angel investor. My strategy is not necessarily to kind of support friends, and I know some angel investors, totally cool if you're that way. For me personally, my parents have worked really hard and put me in a position where I'm able to kind of work hard for financial gain. And so that's really my focus for angel investing. It's to hit the home runs and to put not just myself, but, my future family and, my extended family in as great of a position as possible, right? And so it's really a kind of a position of ambition, right, where I'm going to be investing. I've invested in actually 10 startups. By the time this video comes out, I'll probably have done my 10th investment. That'll be to Candle Finance. Shout out to my friends Gary and Liam. They're doing great work. Young, energetic, and, really savvy team. So I'm excited to be backing them. It'll be my third Techstars company that I've invested in. And so, that's 1 out of 3. Hopefully, I'll be able to boost that in the future, but we'll see. But all of them really great, awesome founders. Ally Connect, shout out to Colleen. She's a business assassin. Absolutely love the vibe that she gives off. Absolutely, just air of professional, focused, just intense work ethic, right? And I think that's just kind of what she exudes. And Cortex, Brennan White, awesome guy, really smart, marketing, all that type of stuff. Really great company, and happy to have supported them. So that's kind of where my background is. So what is my investment thesis? So some of the things I talk about. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be using this to judge companies, but just kind of wanted to lay out all my cards so that people know where some of my biases may lie, right? I'm going to try to be as impartial as possible, right? But, just for, full context sake, this is kind of what my personal investment thesis is, right? So, the main tenet is sending lazy incumbents to pasture. When there's an incumbent who has been doing things a certain way for a really long time, I really want to see who's going to be shaking it up, who's going to be improving. And by lazy incumbent, right, I think that's really important to focus on because there are some incumbents who are iterating and are still working, right? But there are those stagnant industries that really need a refresh. for the sake of, you know, humanity as a whole, for whoever their customer base is, they're, you know, in a bad state because the lazy incumbents are just not innovating. But, you know, in some cases, there might be like a incumbent who's working in a fast-paced area, and, you know, there are startups looking to usurp them. That's also another really cool area, right, to look at. So really looking at disruptive macro trends, right? These may include AI in the particular sense. Right now, when I'm recording this video, generative AI is hot, but AI of all sorts, and, you know, that might include less buzzworthy stuff like automation, just in automation in general, and looking for kind of the data analytics and improvement of an existing process. Those are always really great. And really, you know, in terms of like just the founding team in general, I have a sort of affinity towards people whom say, I've been working in this industry for X amount of years, preferably probably 4 to 5-ish is probably a good benchmark on the low end. Obviously, more the better, maybe not too much, because then they become an entrenched incumbent themselves and are not really looking at things from a superly innovative sense. But, you know, former corporate cogs, they've been working in this space for so long. They've been kind of beaten down by how the industry's worked, and they're striking out on their own in order to do it better themselves. And I think that's just an incredible mindset to have, right? You're constrained, you're contained, and now you're breaking free. And that liberation and that freedom that you gain from being able to build a startup for the sake of speed and directioning, always really impressive things to be able to see in entrepreneurs. And I think, you know, just kind of going into story time here, right? When I first started at Techstars Boston, there's a company, Openly, Ty and Matt. They kind of fit that profile almost exactly, right? They worked in insurance for years, and now they're going to go and do about it in a totally different way compared to, you know, what I would probably consider lazy incumbents. And, you know, when I first started out, obviously not an angel investor, so didn't have an opportunity to, you know, invest or take part in any meaningful way. But, you know, kind of looking at like the mold of what a outstanding company is, and obviously, you know, they raised their Series C. They're well on their way to being a great company. You know, that kind of is a good kind of shining example in my mind of like what the success case is, right? And obviously, you know, when we look at it, that could be my bias, right? I could be looking at it you know, as like a survivorship bias, or, you know, just what's in front of me. And that's always good to kind of recognize. But, you know, I kind of use it as a guideline for myself when I evaluate pitches, when I evaluate companies, all those different types of things. I would probably put Colleen with Ally Connect, formerly Thrivelution, under this kind of former, maybe not necessarily corporate cog, but she's worked in her industry for a very long time and is striking out to go at it from her own directioning and speed and perspective. So, you know, that's an example of me following it. I think that the company that I'm investing in at the time of recording this video, Candle, you know, these guys have worked in engineering organizations, big, small, in between, a lot of experience in between them. Maybe not directly in the field that they're working in, right? But they have kind of a hobby-like passion in the area, which kind of lends to that credibility in a particular industry. But I think, you know, I'm kind of stretching. This is on the other end of, you know, partial fit of the guidelines. Last but not least, I love corporate branding. So whenever a company has a really strong resonant branding, whether it's in the founder story or the story that's being manufactured by a particular company brand, I always love that. I think that in some cases, some companies are a little bit too boring when it comes to branding and how they talk about their company. From some companies like B2B, how much can you spice it up? But if you're a consumer company and there really isn't a strong story or vein that's going through, kind of any thematic notes that are going through the company, I start getting a little bit concerned. But you know, these are things that are fixable, and so, things that I can certainly personally help out. Just going back to it, so, just usually the criteria, right? I look at companies being able to fit macro trends, so they're heading in a direction that I personally feel the world is heading towards, right? And, totally avoided a lot of crypto solutions, and I think rightfully so, just because I don't think that's the way that the world is going. But, I'm always willing and ready to be wrong. But these are just kind of, as an angel investor, I'm investing my own money. So this is where I'm putting my money where my mouth and my brain is, I guess, in a sense. In terms of strong team, that's kind of a must. One of the ways in which I kind of look at it is, would I be willing to work for this company? I'm not really that great of an employee because I don't constraints are hard for me. I usually like working within more of a free form sense. So whenever I'm put into someone else's structure, it's challenging for me, I would say, because it's really easy for me to kind of just go into like head down, unmotivated, kind of chugging along the way. But just thinking about like, would this be a team that I would be excited to join? And all the examples, right, I kind of put forth, like, if they offered me a position, would I actually give it serious thought? And I think it would be true. And some of the more recent investments that I made, I think this was a new kind of thought process that I had. Some of the older companies I'd be a little bit more concerned about. So I think that kind of shows a little bit of growth in how I think about investing and that type of stuff. So, cool. Going on to the next thing. So what are some of the grading criteria, right, in level of importance? So I might refer to this back when I make the tier lists, right? So there's the grading criteria. Starting from most important to not important. So looking at clarity and wow factor. So like if I come out of it and I'm stunned, like holy crap, this company is growing really fast and I totally understand whatever message they wanted, it's as if they, implanted into my head. I totally get what's going on. Some founders are really incredible at just like passing on the vision. Some other companies you're like, I don't really understand and I have to like pick it out of there. So I think you lose points with that. But, if I come out of it, you have a really great business. Obviously, that's the most important thing. You and your team are really special. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't be able to recruit that team if I went out and did it myself, or, I'm just admiring. I need to be able to admire the people that I'm talking to and are invested in, right? Strong charisma. You're able to hold my attention, and I personally feel like there's a connection there. I'm willing and able to be friends because ultimately, as an angel investor, investing early in a company's formation, there's times where you might be asking me for help. We're going to be heads down working on stuff, and if you're not charismatic or you're not able to have like a functional working relationship, then that's probably going to score low in that category. Memorability. So I guess that kind of goes with clarity, but if I come out of a pitch and I'm not able to reiterate what your company does, like I'm not able to give the elevator pitch for it, that's part of the job of what an angel investor is when they're evangelizing about a startup. If I'm not able to effectively evangelize about a startup, then you've kind of failed in that pitch, right? You kind of failed in those investor relations. So being able to have a strong story, right? Being able to articulate what the mission is, what is the vision, right? And like if I can remember like a thing on a slide, right? Whether it's, you know, a prominent number or some form of like just representation of something that just sticks in my head, right? That's obviously going to score high. And last off, and I think this is a part that founders kind of forget, and honestly, I kind of forget about it too, but really think about it. Like, when an investor, you know, forwards your pitch to someone else or introduces you to a different investor, they're kind of you're putting your stamp on it, right? You're like, you know, you're sharing something with someone else and being like, yeah, pretty good, right? And if they're like, no, this wasn't great, then you're like, oh. And they're going to think of the investor less, right? You're going to think of the person who shared, you know, what might be a dud in someone else's eyes, less. So, you know, I'm expending some form of professional capital whenever I make an introduction or I, you know, forward a pitch deck to someone else, right, that I may or may not know. And so if it's not a great company and I put my stamp on it, obviously that expends a lot of professional capital. And so, you know, I'd really love to be able to point to a pitch or to a company and say, you know, I'm proud of it. You should be investing in it. And if you think they suck, I'm willing to fight for them and be willing to disagree and, you know, argue on a company's behalf. And, you know, again, the more wow factors there are, the more clarity that you're able to give, you know, the more it just makes sense, right? And then the better the company is, easier it is to argue for. And I think lastly, you know, I don't just invest in one company. I usually don't. In fact, I will try not to, actively try not to invest companies that are doing related things. But I'm willing to share pitches and, you know, show public information about different companies to other companies that I invest in to show like, hey, this is what I expect the standard to be, right? And so, you know, the ability to kind of push the envelope, like raise the bar on what the standard should be, all's the better there. So that's kind of the grading criteria there. And, you know, for the upcoming series with all the Techstars companies, bam, tier list, right? I could use the tier list website, but I'll have more full control over in PowerPoint to kind of lay that out. So that's kind of my different criteria, how I'm going to be doing the pitch reviews. I'm excited to do them. Hope you'll find them interesting. This is a really long-winded video. I apologize. I'll probably try to cut it down as much as possible. But go to my channel. Check out all of the reviews. Hopefully, I'm being fair and balanced. We'll see how these companies stack up on the tier list. Thanks for watching.